Before we run the application, we can also check if the entity relations are formed correctly using a visual tool. Now, if you've been following the videos from the beginning, we just installed an Entity Framework 6 Power tool from the extensions. So using that, no additional step is required, but if you just right click on the context file, you will see an additional option, Entity Framework 6. Now this will not be there if we have not installed the Power Tools extension. So you can go ahead and click the first option, which will show you the entity data model, and it is read only, meaning you cannot save it. So it might take a little while, and once it is ready, we'll see the actual diagrams. You can just confirm if all the relationships are the way we intended when we first drew the ER diagram on pen and paper. In fact, we can use this at any point of time, meaning we don't have to wait until all the entities are created and the context is created. We could have the context right away in the beginning of the process. As and when we keep adding the entities, we can just keep visualizing the relationships formed so far like this, instead of waiting for doing at the end. And of course, once we have this diagram, we could also export as image. It will give you various options to save this diagram, which can also be handy to document it. The only thing is we cannot save this. If you try to save, it says it is write protected. In fact, if we try to save any other files while this is open and in an unsaved mode, we get this message. So we just have to close this, and we just have to say don't save, right? So this way we can visualize the relationships which we just created. Now let's see how we can run this application and make sure that the database created is matching the model or the entity model we just created. So let me go to the form1.cs. This is a new project which we created, a Windows Forms application. So we have not yet put anything in the user interface, but I've just put some code to make sure we run the application and access the data once, so that Entity Framework will decide if there is database or it has to create one. So I have a small method here in the form load called setup data. All it is trying to do is just access the first priest entity in the database and just say done. If done, or if there are any error messages, we will also be seeing them. And if you notice here, I do not have any database related to temple. So if things go right, we should be able to run this application, and we should be able to see that the Entity Framework generated the database for us. So let's just go ahead and do a Control F5 on this. The build succeeded. Now since we are accessing the database right in the form load, only after it is done we will actually see the output. So later on we will see how to improve on that. But looks like everything went well, so we just got done, and once I click it, the form will actually load. So we'll see how to do it in a better way. But let's just check if the database was actually created. So I'll go ahead and refresh the databases. So we have the temple DB here. So let's take a look at the tables in it. I'll get to what migration history is in the upcoming videos, but let's just see if we have the entities created right. So you can see most of the things here, but just by looking into the columns, null, not null, PK or FK, which stands for foreign key. So things look as expected, and Out of curiosity, let me also check the distribution detail because it had a composite primary key, so which is also taken care well. You can also see the constraints or the named keys which are shown in the keys section. But of course, we will not have any data right now. If I just do a view data on this, we'll be not having any data yet. So we were able to come out with the entities, configure them, put them all into the context, verify that the schema which it's showing in the ER diagram as well as the tables generated in the database match what we intended to do based on the requirements. So we'll see what the next steps are in the upcoming